do is something called thumb stalling. So we have this leather patch, cover this hole up back at the back end of the cannon, and that helps keep Tristan safe because now not letting any air flow through the cannon, which might stoke up any embers in there and blow them at him or cause a later issue. So Tristan will now start cleaning out the cannon using the gunner's worm or an auger, basically a giant corkscrew, and he's going to be looking for any debris in there. Now today he might be pulling out some aluminum foil. They would have been using cloth back in the 1880s, but cloth tends to burn, and we don't want it to keep burning because we don't want to have any accidents. And we also don't want any burning cloth going down the hill into the park. So next, Tristan will be using what is known as the wet swab, basically a giant Q-tip or a sponge on a stick. And then he dips it in that bucket, runs that down the barrel, and this cools the barrel. It puts out embers with water, and it also creates a vacuum. You might have heard that little thump when he pulled out that wet swab. That was our vacuum closing. So now we're pretty certain that all of the embers are out. So now we are going to load in our salute charge, and he will pack that down. Now today, our salute charge is about 3 to 4 ounces of black powder. They would have been using 10 ounces of black powder back then, but that tends to scare horses and rattle windows, and they don't like us doing that anymore. So we have to go down to 3 or 4 ounces. All right, so now that we have our cannon nice and loaded, we'll roll it up into position at the wall. And now Tristan will begin priming it. So to prime it, he'll start with a brass spike, which will push down that touch hole to poke a hole into our charge. Does anyone have a guess why we are using specifically brass?
Because no boom boom.
Pretty much. No sparks. So our cannon won't go off prematurely, which would be very bad, especially if we did have a large charge in there, because that cannon would come flying back, and Tristan's in a very bad location for that to happen. So now the last thing he is doing is placing our ignition source, which is called a friction primer. It's one of these little brass tubes full of black powder, and up on top there is a explosive chemical called fulminate of mercury and a pin. So when you pull that pin, that fulminate of mercury lights, which lights the black powder in the tube, which then shoots fire into our charge, setting off our cannon. Now, even though we are only using 3 to 4 ounces of black powder, it is still quite loud, so I'm going to suggest that you all cover your ears or take out your cameras, wherever your priorities may lie. So with that, we have just 2 commands for firing this cannon, and they are ready, fire! And there you have it, our salute charge to all of you for coming and visiting us here at Fort Mackinac. Now, if you have any questions,